Good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals Public Review Session for March 4, 2014. We'll begin with a special order calendar, decision items. Item number 1, 13-78BZ, 14402 Liberty Avenue, Queens.
We weren't waiting for anything. Are there any issues?
No. Good. Continued hearing items. Item number 2, 5-28BZ, 664 New York Avenue, Brooklyn. The office of Eric Galetnik.
All right, we had a few questions last time, and the applicant responded. Questions or comments? Yes.
I have a question. It says when talking about the circulation on the site and how much traffic is coming in, it talks about monthly rentals. And was that part, is that allowed? Is that part of a previous grant? Or?
You mean currently?
Yes, because there are 20 cars allowed to park there.
I don't believe that's part of, it's illegal. But I guess the point they're making is still that that's, the way the site is functioning right now, it does have, takes into consideration the monthly rentals. Yes?
I had another.
Yeah, sure.
About the curb cuts, because I thought we had asked them to explore removing the New York Avenue curb cut and then removing the blocking piece for the handicap parking. And it seems like they removed a curb cut from a side street, but kept all 4 curb cuts on.
Right. They kept all 4 curb cuts, but they claimed that they're reducing the size of each curb cut to 30 feet. But I think at the last hearing, I think in the last hearing, we did ask them to remove one of the curb cuts, the one that goes into the handicap space. But I think I don't know, you're right, they didn't respond to us on that issue.
Right.
But I'm presuming they want to keep that space, and therefore they want to have a curb cut. Okay.
I just wanted them to clarify whether or not the numbers they're quoting in terms of their trip generations included the operation of them going to pick up somebody and bringing it back, or should we be doubling their number? It's not clear.
Okay. Yes.
Regarding the landscaping, they did add some landscaping on Hawthorne, adjacent to the residential, but they're adding a lot of chain link fencing on the site closer to Winthrop.
Mm-hmm.
And I had asked if they could put in a street tree, and they did an alternate site saying it would remove spaces, you know, if it was adjacent to, parallel to the residential, but I thought if it was parallel to Winthrop, there's a possibility they could put a planting strip there.
Right, I think they can probably. So we can ask them to explore that.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
The sign is going to project a little over the sidewalk. I was just wondering why they couldn't have the sign completely within their premises.
Right, I had an issue with that sign because right now, I think the signage, this is a new sign that they're going to put up. It's the pylon sign. It's probably going to be illuminated, and I think we want to make sure that it's placed at a location that it's least obtrusive. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
I had some similar issues. I didn't think it was clear whether or not the freestanding sign was going to have 2 faces in it, so they've been counted in the sign analysis. Similar to Commissioner Otley Brown's question on the curb cuts, even if restored to 30 feet, I don't think they've explained why they need all 4 of them. Since the car rental will close at 5 p.m. Monday through Friday and at noon on Saturday, is there the opportunity for drop-offs or returns after those hours? How will that be handled? And although they told us that the planting strip was deemed infeasible, I agree with Commissioner Montanez. I think that some further landscaping and planting could be done.
Okay. I didn't realize they did note the hours of operation for Enterprise, and it was going to be closing at 5?
That's
okay.
what I have in my notes.
Okay.
I think that's what they said.
All right. Okay.
Item number 3, 92377BZ, 1905 McDonald Avenue, Brooklyn. The office of Rothberg and Rothberg.
The applicant provided us photographs. They've cleaned up the site, and I believe there's only 2 signs, and they represent that that's allowed under the C1 signage. Any issues? No. Okay.
Item number 4, 107084BZ, 234 East 58th Street, Manhattan. The law office of Frederick A. Becker.
The applicant notified the tenants of the building, we had asked them to do that, and they also clarified that it would be use group 6, eating and drinking. It allows, in fact, entertainment and music, but the capacity has to be within 200, and right now their occupancy is 190.
Right, and there's no admission and there's no designated start time.
Yes, right, exactly.
Item number 5, 79989 BZ, 1460, 1470 Bruckner Boulevard, the Bronx.
All right, the applicant provided us with submission, they've taken photographs, they've removed the razor wire fence,
Yes, they
razor
have,
wire rather, yes.
they have removed the barbed wire from the residential portion of the site.
Okay, and the site looks a lot better than it did previously. Right, any other questions? Okay.
Item number 6, 20102 BZ, 6778 Highland Boulevard, Staten Island.
All right, any questions and comments? Oh, I believe the community board has voted in support, but we're just waiting for the recommendation, the paper copy to come to the board. Any issues?
New cases, item number 7, 246-01BZ, 35-11 Prince Street, Queens.
All right, this is a case for an enlargement of the PCE. Any questions? Yes.
They had a violation for work contrary to permits, and then on the violation, it mentioned something about a roof sign. I would just like to clarify that that was removed.
Okay. Any other questions?
And could they provide us with photos of the 35th Street side? They only give us one facade.
Okay. All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Appeals calendar, item number 8, 98-13A, 107 Haven Avenue, Staten Island.
All right. As you know, the applicant's been working with DOT, and we've got our sign-offs from DEP as well as Fire Department. And the applicant now would like us to close this hearing, given that any approval at the Buildings Department is going to require sign-offs from DOT. Commissioner Montes,
I don't have
I know-
any issues with that, no.
okay,
I
all
mean,
right.
And I think it's clear that they can use the,
Yes, the lot
current
line
as
as their
the-
basis for their setbacks.
right.
Right.
Yes.
And they did provide us with a drawing that shows that you get a much smaller home if they set the building back and try and line it up with the other buildings. And because this is actually a shallow site as well, even if they once they provide the 20 feet at the rear, you really don't get much of a footprint. It's in fact fairly underdeveloped as a result.
I did have one question,
Yes.
though, regarding the bonus floor area
Mhm.
over the .5 FAR. I believe it has to be under a
It has to be
sloping
under
roof,
slope, yes.
which it is not at the present.
Okay, because it's only on 2 floors, is that
Right.
right? All right, well, we lost them to depict a building that is zoning compliant.
I mean, they could put it in an attic, or I guess lower
They
the
could-
roof.
Right, they could lower the attic, the slope of the roof. Okay, we'll alert them to that. This is a case where these streets were mapped in, I guess, 1929, and DOT has not taken over them, and even though we may not have a sign-off, I think the very fact that they haven't told us that they're planning to take it under their capital improvement plan, I think we can assume that they're not. And it's been more than 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
New cases, item number 9, 140 and 14111A, 6917 30th Avenue, Queens.
All right, it's an extension of time to complete construction. The board had granted a vested rights applications a few years ago. We gave a 2-year time period. They haven't completed construction, so they'd like additional time. Any issues?
Could they, oh,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Could they tell us when they plan to provide certificates of correction for their hazardous violations especially? And it seems that they have a new hazardous violation since January of this year. So I'm interested in what their plan is to correct those.
Okay. Commissioner Martinez?
My question just had to do with the changes to the plan.
Mhm.
That was all approved and audited by DOB. They've increased the FAR and added another use.
Okay. Can ask them. Any other questions? Yes.
Can they reconcile their statement with the resolution as regards the work previously done by the rezoning as well as the money spent? Because some of their percentages are off,
Okay,
so it's a little confusing.
sure. All right. Excuse me.
Zoning calendar, decision items, item number 1, 303-12 BZ, 1106, 1108 Utica Avenue, Brooklyn.
We'll have to defer the decision. The applicant is still working with DEP.
Item number 2, 6-13 BZ, 2899 Nostrand Avenue, Brooklyn.
All right, any issues with this? We had postponed the hearing last time because the council member wanted to have a chance to review this. We have not received anything into the record, so I think we can go ahead and vote this out.
Item number 3, 7813 BZ, 876 Kent Avenue, Brooklyn.
We have all sign-offs, so we can proceed with decision on this case.
Item number 4, 8813 BZ, 69-40 Austin Street, Queens.
Any issues with this?
No.
Okay.
Item number 5, 23413 BZ, 1651, 1653 Ryder Street, Brooklyn.
Any issues with this? Okay, good.
Continued hearings. Item number 6, 6413 BZ, 7-712 Avenue W, Brooklyn.
All right, questions and comments?
It seems that the party wall is permitted.
Yes.
I just had an additional question on drawing 22, where they're explaining what the slope is going into their garage. If they could indicate the percentage of the slope on the drawing, they give us some dimension, but they don't actually give us what they're saying it's supposed to be, which is, I believe, 10%. And maybe they should draw a car on the drawing, just to give it a little more comfort that it's actually going to work.
Right. Well, the slope goes beyond the building line. I think that's what happens. You can't, within this, I guess it's the front yard, you don't actually achieve going to the level of the cellar. That's the problem. And so at one point where you have the building line, they're claiming that they get clearance of 6 feet 8. We can ask the buildings department to review this as well. I don't know if that they allow you to do that, but
It just seems like a short run
it does.
to be able to get in there.
Okay, any other questions? All right.
Item number 7, 92 and 9313 BZ, 22 and 26 Lewiston Street, Staten Island.
All right, questions and comments?
It just seems like a better proposal, I think.
The two homes?
Right, move forward.
Yes, I agree. And I think they did what we had asked them to do. They've looked at 2-family detached as well as 1-family detached homes, and actually the neighborhood has both. But I think that it seems to me that their as-of-right, which is the 2-family detached, really is still fairly underdeveloped in their recent submission. I think you get to 0.33 FAR. Having 2 homes, they'd get to 0.43 in one case and 0.49. And they also previously had provided us with average FARs in the neighborhood, and they average out to be, in fact, higher than 0.5. So I think they've did a fairly good analysis for justifying the 2 homes.
Agreed.
Okay, good.
Item number 8, 103-13 BZ, 81 Jefferson Street, Brooklyn.
All right, the applicant provided revised drawings. They've removed the court that was non-compliant, but now they've converted it into a ventilation
AC,
shaft.
Duct, yeah.
I don't know, it's just problematic to me what they're using that for. Yes,
They translated the buildings from, on the block, from stories to feet, because I had asked at
Yes,
the
yes,
last hearing to
right.
do that. So of the 34 buildings in this survey on both sides of the street, there's 27 of them that are residential, and 12 of those are greater than 40 and 15 are lesser than 40. So it's a
Right.
mixed context.
Right, yes. So I
I
guess
don't-
you are okay with the 4 stories, given that the context supports it?
43 and a half feet, right?
Yes, the buildings are, yes, exactly.
I don't
43.
think it sticks out. I don't think it's a big
No,
problem.
I think it's, in fact, I think it fits in quite well, and even the streetscapes seem to show that. About this AC shaft,
I was not necessarily on board with what they're showing. I mean, personally, I think that if they would actually flip the dining area with their kitchen, they could probably be able to do the kitchen with mechanical ventilation. And it actually puts the dining area in an area where you've got light and air, and it's sort of connected to the living space. And it just didn't seem logical that they're splitting their plumbing. This is a relatively modest building, and one would think that you would have one wet wall so that you don't have to sort of split your plumbing up, and it just didn't seem feasible. So I would like them to maybe switch that, show us,
okay?
that they don't really need that space, that AC duct space necessarily.
All right, that sounds good.
Item number 9, 12813BZ, 1668 East 28th Street, Brooklyn.
The applicant came back and clarified the base plane that they were using, and I think they did a pretty good job in explaining what the heights are, and therefore their ability to ask for the perimeter wall waiver. Is there any concerns? At the last hearing, the applicant requested a close and grant, and our council has drafted that resolution. There are no issues, we could do that?
Item number 10, 130-13BZ, 1590 Nostrand Avenue, Brooklyn.
All right, questions and comments on this case? They came back and they have shown that they're going to reapportion the lot so that it'll come back to the size of the original variance lot. They have now proposed warehousing in the building at the rear and have provided parking space associated with that.
And their parking study shows minimum of 35, maximum of 85 available
Yes.
during regular business hours between 8 and 5.
Right, my question on that, on the traffic study is, I think if you're going to show us what the supply side is, you should tell us what the demand is as well. So if
Right.
they can explain to us what they anticipate are the number of parking spots that would be required during the peak periods for the retail. I also just question the survey itself, because it seems to me that you may have a higher peak for parking in the evening hours, not at 5, and on Saturdays, and they haven't identified that. So it seems to me if you really want to look at this, they should first find out when the demand is, what's the peak period, and then look at this, then actually identify the number of available parking spots. All right, any other comments or questions? All right, I just want to alert the applicant once again that this is a reinstatement and that there are findings that have to be made in accordance to our rules. I would like them to revise their statement of facts and findings accordingly. One of those has to do with proof of continuous use. The applicant provided us with little explanation regarding some of the information they gave into the record, which had to do with a 1968 Sanborn and 1978 Sanborn, some DOB permits. I think that they need to speak about that evidence in their statement. Okay.
Item number 11, I'm sorry. May I go on?
I just have one other comment, that is, I think they should provide us elevations for both streets. I think we have it for Nostrand, but we don't have it for East 29th. Yes.
Item number 11, 157-13BZ, 1368 and 1374 East 23rd Street, Brooklyn.
All right, questions and comments? The applicant reduced the height, which is good because it used to be 41, almost 42 feet, and now it's 36. And I think makes the home look more compatible with the other homes. Any other comments?
Nope.
Okay, good.
New cases, item number 12, 16313 BZ, 133-10, 39th Avenue, Queens.
It's a case for waiver for reducing parking. Questions and comments? Yes.
Have they made it clear to us what the uses are that exist in the building right now? Is it just office?
We can, sorry, yes, Commissioner Mendes?
No, I'm agreeing, yes,
Yep.
yeah.
We can ask them to clarify
I
that.
just wanted to know.
Yeah, the photo's unclear. It actually looks like there may be some sort of a nail salon.
Or-
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Retailers.
Well, the photographs are also somewhat misleading because they've identified the site, but I think they've identified more buildings than are actually a part of the site. Site has, I think, 2 of those buildings, and, there's currently, I think there may be 6 of them all together. So they're enlarging 2 of those buildings.
Right.
Okay, so we'll clarify that as well, yes.
Only a portion of the lot is within the 100 feet from the corner. Then I think 27 feet of the lot is beyond 100 feet, so I think they have to provide a rear yard there, which they're not.
Okay, we can alert them to that.
And in terms of, just a couple of questions, in terms of their trip generation, they're using the 2000 census, and I'm just wondering if they have information that's updated. We had a 2010 census, so if they could just clarify that. And also, could they provide a map of their parking survey? I think they just give us a narrative, but they don't actually show us where they looked
Okay,
in terms of parking.
I also don't think they really gave us an owner affidavit, attesting to their proposed use. And on the plans, they have community facility notes, which, they're just proposing an entire building with office use. So,
okay, they can clarify that to us, because community facility also can get the reduction in parking, so we can clarify that. Any other questions? Okay,
Item number 13, 252-13 BZ, 1221 East 22nd Street, Brooklyn.
all right, questions, comments? I think it'd be helpful for the record if they provide us with the DOB sign-off, since they've said that they've done already some work under permits, and that's been completed, so if they can provide that to us.
I had a
Yes.
question about that, and it would be helpful to see the DOB sign off, because I think they've indicated that the as-of-right work that they did do, they wind up exceeding 3,000 square feet, and if they are permitted .5, I think they need to explain why they are over that. And if they're asking for 6,438 square feet, I'm wondering if part of this is a legalization. Maybe I read it wrong, but it appeared to me that they're over currently. And if they could show us how many grants within the 100, like they talk about 100-foot circumference of their building. If they could just show us on a map the grants that have been given, that would be great.
Yes,
as far as the streetscape, I think the house is pretty massive and very tall.
I agree.
And there's like 15 feet from the attic floor to the roof ridge. And, could they bring the house down a little?
I agree. I think they're asking for 1.07 FAR, which is fairly large. Mostly we give 1 FAR. They did a survey, they talked about BSA grants. Most of them are less than this 1.07. They're identifying one case where we apparently had allowed 1.08. I did go look at that 2002 grant. I could not tell from the resolution what was allowed, so if they believe that we granted that, they should provide some evidence. And I think that the building does look large, and there's a lot of double height space, and it seems like they're creating a lot of volume unnecessarily, and I think they should try and bring that down. I agree with Commissioner.
Right, and also, what are they counting in the attic? It wasn't clear.
Okay.
And could they please put a note on the drawing for that canopy that's in the side yard, that should be just approved at DOB?
Okay. All right.
Item number 14, 270-13BZ, 288 Dover Street, Brooklyn.
All right, questions and comments on this case? Yes,
The only comment I had to do with landscaping,
okay.
and I guess it's a corner site. They could put landscaping on Dover. I don't know how the DOB handles the beachfront. 'Cause
Right.
The other side is really facing the water, and it's kind of sandy.
Right, well, we
But
can
I
ask
think on
them.
Dover, they haven't shown any landscape.
Okay, all right. Yes, Susan?
They've got I guess it's the front patio or stairs that lead up to the entry. It seems that encroaches on the sidewalk, and I'm wondering if that's
Allowed?
something that has been there, and they just reconstructed. It looked kind of new, so if they could explain that. Otherwise, I guess they should just kind of remove that from the drawings that we're looking at.
Okay.
Item number 15, 273-13BZ, 321 East 60th Street, Manhattan.
All right, I just want to alert the applicant that there's a threshold issue here, and that has to do with the parking that they're proposing. Article 1, Chapter 3, which is the parking regulations for Manhattan south of 110th Street applies. You're not allowed to have permitted parking that's greater than 35% for residential, and you're not allowed to have more than one for 4,000 square feet for community facility and office space. So if they want to provide the parking, they need to get an additional objection and incorporate an argument to the board as to why they want to have more parking than allowed. And their as-of-right proposal will have to change because I believe they won't be able to provide that much parking. So that may change both the economics on the site as well as the actual building that's going to be developed. But otherwise, I think this is one of those cases where the site is fairly constrained. I think it's small, it's very irregular, and it has obviously constraints in terms of construction, given that you have this ramp and the infrastructure.
No matter what they build.
No matter what they build, exactly.
It's got the bridge, it's got the tram.
But one thing I would say is that some of their statement and the supporting evidence, it is evident that you have constraints that will take place as a result of the infrastructure. But if the cost that they've identified is just a statement, and I guess there's a table that's attached to the financial. It seems to me that at least sometimes we'll have either the engineer who'll actually explain this more fully, or we'll see diagrams so we can understand what the construction staging would be, that reinforce these additional costs. So I think that they should at least do that.
Right, they talked about the inability to use a crane, and I was wondering whether or not the cranes and derricks unit of DOB agrees with that. Is there some evidence, or is it just, are they asking us to just make the leap and say that we agree that it's?
Well, I think that if they give us a plan which shows staging, I think we'll have a better sense
Right.
of how they can do it,
Yep.
or what they'd be required to do. All right, other comments? Yes.
Do they have, is there an easement that allows for them to access parking? They've got a note on their plan that says access for parking, and I'm just wondering if that means that they're traversing another piece of property. There just seems to be sort of this open area, then their lot.
Doesn't it look like it's just an extension of the sidewalk? That's what I assumed it was.
I think so, but if, maybe they could just clarify that.
Okay. All right, other questions and comments on this case? Commissioner, any issues with the financials?
No questions.
Okay. All right, so if they can put some more evidence on the A finding, I think would be helpful. The examiner had asked them to also provide some proof that this was a pre-existing lot and its configuration hadn't changed, and the only thing they provided us was with the C of O. I don't think that's dispositive. So if they can give us some more information regarding that.
Item number
Yes.
16, 28113BZ, 350, 370 Canal Street, Manhattan.
All right, any concerns about this case? It's for a PCE. Okay, I just had a question regarding the authorization, but I believe that was taken care of since there are two lots that are in question here. There's the post office as well as the hotel. All right?
Item number 17, 29113BZ, 842 Lefferts Avenue, Brooklyn.
Any questions about this case? Okay, good.
Item number 18, 297-13BZ, 308 Cooper Street, Brooklyn.
All right, questions and comments? It's a small lot. We're asking for a change of use. I thought they did a fairly good analysis of the lots in the surrounding area in terms of the ones that have conforming uses and the average size of those lots, as well as the existing vacant sites and how their site is the smallest really and shallow. They did provide us evidence that the city actually disposed these sites in 1983 as two separate lots. So that was to address the issue of whether this lot was subdivided by the previous owner at some point, but it seems that the city actually disposed these two lots separately.
I
Yes.
think that the closest residential zoning district, I think, is an R6, though, and they're proposing an R6A. So I would just like them to justify that a little better.
Well, the R6A is a contextual envelope, yes, and it's a corner lot.
Right.
And so if it was R6 and it was a corner lot, they'd probably get the same,
They would? Or
I
would it
believe they
be-
may get the same 3 FAR, but we can clarify that.
Okay.
They did an analysis of a 2-story and a 3-story, because our examiner asked them to do that. And I did think that it's possible that the 2-story would actually work if they lower the cap rate. They've used a cap rate, I think, of 6.8, which is fairly high for residential. Isn't that correct, Commissioner?
Well, it's a little high if it were in Manhattan, but I'm not so sure if it's that high for being in Brooklyn. They could speak to that.
Okay. I thought it was high, and I thought we've seen things at 6, so, and right now, I think the overall return that they're getting on their 2-story is around 6 as well, so I don't really have a problem with the 3-story building, but I think we should make sure that it meets the E finding. Okay.
I questioned just the height of the 3 stories, that it appeared that they've got a 9'6" ceiling height and an 11'6" floor-to-floor height. And I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to bring that down a little bit so that it's a little more harmonious with their adjacent buildings. I don't mind the 3 stories, but I think the height's a little inflated.
Okay. Did you have some concerns about the access to the roof?
Yes, I
They
did.
have 3
actually.
access points.
They do, and they've got spiral staircases to the roof from different apartments. If they're going to use the roof, I think they need to check out whether they're permitted to have a spiral stair, but secondly, they're going to need a higher parapet. I think they're only showing 36 inches, and they're going to need 42 if they're planning on having people up there. They can explain that a bit.
Yes.
I had questions about the financials in terms of the residential
Mhm.
income. It's not clear to me whether or not they're actually charging rent for those cellar spaces that are actually part of the apartments. And it's hard to see because there isn't a stacking plan that shows what's going on there. We just have an average rent per month for the proposed as well as for the alternative.
Right.
So if they could show us a stacking plan and show us how they're attributing that income, and if they're not including income for the seller, they should add it in.
Okay. I know that in their plans, they note that the cellar space is rentable, but whether they've taken that square footage in their calculation for the financials, I don't know.
Right, it's hard because when you look at the square footage that they're assessing, the above-ground square footage is the same as the total residential square foot that they're using. However, they are using a monthly rent and not a per square foot rent, so it's kind of hard to tell.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Okay, good.
This concludes, oh, I'm sorry. This concludes the morning review session for March 4th.